One lap. That is the entire subject of this video. Not a season, not a rivalry, not a conspiracy. One lap of a Formula One race between a pit wall, making a call, and a car arriving in the pit box, and what that single lap now forces Fred Vasseur to decide about how his team works. Here is the sequence, and I am going to give it to you cold. The way you would read it off a timing sheet, because it does not need any help from me. Lap 35 of the Dutch Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton passes Oscar Piastri for 5th place and comes out directly behind Charles Leclerc, his own teammate, on a tire roughly 4 laps fresher. Lap 42. Hamilton to his engineer Carlos Santi. I'm quicker than Charles, tires are better. Lap 43, still behind, we're just losing time. And then, the line that has been clipped and reposted on every platform since Sunday afternoon. Great way of wasting time, guys. Good job. And in between those, according to GP Blog's account of the team radio published on Sunday, Ferrari called Leclerc to the pits, and Leclerc did not come in on that call. He stayed out one more lap, holding track position, and boxed on lap 43. That is the fact this video is built on, and I want to be precise about its status before we go one sentence further, because precision is the only thing that makes a channel like this worth watching. That account comes from one outlet's reading of the broadcast radio. It is not an FIA document. Ferrari has not confirmed it, disputed it, or been asked about it in any quote I could find on Sunday evening. Nobody outside that garage knows how the instruction was worded, whether it was a call or an option, or what Leclerc understood it to be. So when I say Ferrari called him in, and he stayed out a lap, I am telling you what was reported. And I am telling you who reported it, and I am not telling you what was in anybody's head. Before we build on that, subscribe, because how this gets resolved is now the most interesting internal question at Ferrari, and it gets tested at the next round. And put your country in the comments. I ask it every week, and I read everyone. Now, why does one lap matter enough to talk about for 20 minutes? Because of where it sat. Zandvoort is the circuit where the entire paddock agrees you cannot overtake. Hamilton's own words to Sky Sports Formula One on Saturday were that this is a track that is difficult to overtake at. And he had one asset on Sunday, which was a tire delta on his teammate. A tire delta has a shelf life. It is worth the most on the lap you first hold it and less on every lap after, because the fresher tire is degrading while the older one has already done its degrading. Sitting in dirty air accelerates that, and it also overheats the front tires, which is precisely what you need at Zandvoort with its long banked corners. So the cost of a lap is not one lap. The cost of a lap is the fraction of an advantage that expires while you are stuck behind the thing you are faster than. Vasseur put a number on it himself, unprompted, to Grand Prix 247. Probably we lost 1 second with Charles, he said. Hamilton's own accounting given to Sky after the race was different. He said he lost several seconds behind Charles, which he thinks ultimately would have made the difference at the end. 1 second against several seconds. 2 people on the same team, describing the same event, 4 hours apart. Neither is lying. They are measuring different things. Vasseur is measuring lap time delta. Hamilton is measuring the compound cost, the tire condition, the track position, the gap to Russell that he would spend the last 15 laps failing to close. Now, who is the man who has to sort this out? Because that is who this video is actually about. Fred Vasseur has run Scuderia Ferrari since the start of 2023. Before that Sauber, before that Renault, and before all of it, RT Grand Prix. The junior team, where a very large fraction of the current grid learned their trade. He signed Hamilton, he is the reason Hamilton is in red. And he inherited, along with that signature, the oldest structural problem this team has, which is 2 drivers with a rational claim on the same car. And it is worth saying plainly because the framing of this story elsewhere has been lazy. This is not a video about which driver was right. Leclerc was running his own race on his own strategy, with his own championship position and his own set of reasons to protect track position at a circuit where losing it is close to permanent. He finished second in Saturday's sprint, ahead of Lando Norris. He is not a support driver, and nobody at Ferrari has told him he is, which is exactly the point. The problem is not the driver. The problem is that nobody has told him. So, follow the chain. What does the official account actually cover? Question 1. Why was the stop timed when it was? Vasseur answered that in full. We had a group of people in our shadow, he said, and we are trying to clear this group, and there was another group in front. In the end, we took an option, but the cars in front pitted, like Ocon and Lindblad, and we gave it to Russell like this. That is a complete strategic answer with named cars. Question 2. Why was Hamilton not simply let past? Vasseur's answer in the same session was about strategy. The story with Lewis, he said, was that at one stage we were trying to go to the end, and I think it would have been a good call also. Question 3. What happened between the call to Leclerc and Leclerc arriving in the box? Nobody has addressed it. Not on Sunday. And that third one is the whole video. Here is the fair reading, and I think it is probably the correct one. In modern Formula 1, a call to the pits is very often not an order. It is an option opened by the pit wall, and drivers routinely respond with box confirm or with a request for one more lap because the tires just came back to them or because they can see a car behind that would jump them. A driver saying "give me one more" is not defiance. It is the normal texture of a race happening 30 times a Sunday across the grid, and nobody makes a video about any of it. So why does it matter here? Because of what was sitting behind him. In every one of those 30 ordinary instances, the car that gains from the extra lap and the car that loses from it are on different teams. On Sunday, at Zandvoort, they were both red. And when both cars are red, an ordinary, in race negotiation between a driver and his engineer, stops being a strategy conversation and becomes a question about hierarchy, whether anybody in the garage intended it that way or not. Then the timeline moves, and this is where Vasseur's problem stops being about Sunday. Because this has a precedent, and it is from this season. Miami, the 3rd of May. Hamilton running 8th, Leclerc 7th, directly ahead, split strategies, Hamilton on the medium and Leclerc on the hard. Hamilton believes he can catch Kimi Antonelli up the road and asks to be let past. The team deliberates. Hamilton, impatient on the radio, suggests they have a tea break while they are at it. Ferrari makes the swap. Hamilton cannot catch Antonelli. Ferrari then reverses the positions back, telling Leclerc first. Formula1.com reported that Hamilton had apparently not yet been informed at that point, though he followed the instruction once it reached him. And Vasseur's explanation afterwards, to Formula1.com. It didn't take so long, it was 1 lap and a half or something like this. And when you have two cars, not with the same strategy, the first thing for me to understand is if it's faster when you are behind due to the DRS or not. Now hold both of those in your head at once. In Miami, Ferrari made a call, executed it, and then unwound it. At Zandvoort, Ferrari made a call, and it took an extra lap to arrive. In Miami, Vasseur explained the delay with a measurement problem. At Zandvoort, he explained it with a strategy problem. Both explanations are technically sound. Both are honestly given. And in both cases, the same driver ended the race making the same complaint in the same sarcastic register, 4 months apart. 2 instances. Both dated, both on the record. That is not a pattern yet, and I am not going to tell you it is. But it is enough to say that whatever process Ferrari uses for this, it produced the same outcome twice. And the second time the driver involved was 2nd in the World Championship, rather than 8th on the road. Here is the question for you, and I want it as a vote, because you split almost exactly down the middle last time. When a pit wall calls a driver in and the driver stays out an extra lap, is that a driver doing his job and reading his own tires? Or is it the moment a team learns that its instructions are negotiable? Like this video if you think it is normal racing. Comment if you think it is a chain of command problem. I genuinely do not think there is a free answer, which is why it is worth putting to you. Subscribe while you are there. Now convert it, because a lap is not an abstraction. Lap 55. Esteban Ocon stops at turn 3 and brings out a virtual safety car. Ferrari pits Hamilton and Leclerc, both onto softs. Antonelli pits too and rejoins ahead of Hamilton, but behind George Russell. The virtual safety car ends with 15 laps remaining, and Russell is sitting 3rd on old rubber, with 2 cars behind him on new. Russell knew exactly what was coming. "I think we've lost a double podium here," he told his own pit wall in a message reported by Sports Illustrated. He was talking about Hamilton. Mercedes solved their version of this in 1 lap. On lap 66, they asked Russell to let Antonelli through, because Antonelli had the fresher tire and a live shot at Norris. Russell questioned it on the radio and did it anyway. Both men said afterwards they agreed with the call. Both finished on the podium, 2nd and 3rd. Hamilton had no such arrangement. He had to take 3rd by force. Lap 69, a genuine lunge down the inside at Tarzan, stopped just short of contact. Another run when Russell got out of shape through turn 10. Then a second virtual safety car for debris after the 2 Williams cars touched, which killed the momentum entirely. green flag with 2 laps left. He attacked again. He never got through. Fourth, 3 points behind third, coming out of a summer break in which he sat 50 points behind Antonelli with 12 rounds remaining. And the number that makes all of this structural rather than emotional came from Hamilton himself, to Sky. Ferrari, he said, has been losing between 3 and 5 tenths on the straight this season, depending on the circuit, and that is a hard deficit to overcome just through the corners. Sit with that for a second, because it is the key to the whole thing. If your car concedes 3 to 5 tenths a lap in a straight line, then track position and clean air are not conveniences. They are the only 2 assets you have, which means the currency Ferrari spent between lap 35 and lap 43 was not a bit of lap time. It was the only currency in the account. So let me put the strongest defense of Ferrari, because it deserves one, and it is better than most people are admitting. Nothing about Sunday proves a podium was available. Russell defended for 4 laps against a car on much fresher tires, through 2 restarts, and held on. Hamilton had every chance after the virtual safety car and could not make it stick. Vasseur said it himself, that with what has happened after, you can always rewrite the race. He is right, and I am rewriting it right now with information he did not have on lap 36. And Ferrari has a genuine reason not to lean on Leclerc in August. The Constructors' Championship is live, which means Ferrari needs both cars scoring, which means every point taken from Leclerc is a point taken from Ferrari too. A team principal who spends a driver's goodwill to gain 3 points in a race his car could not win has not been shrewd. He has been careless with the only 2 assets he cannot buy back. But that defense has a boundary, and the boundary is the next occasion. Because whatever happened on lap 42, the situation will repeat. 2 Ferraris, a tire offset, a circuit where following is expensive. It will happen at least 3 or 4 more times before December. And on each of those occasions, Vasseur has exactly 2 options. Option 1 is to decide internally that the driver second in the World Championship gets the call, communicate it to both men in private, and then execute it in 1 lap the way Mercedes did on Sunday. That buys speed and cost him a difficult conversation with the driver who has been at Maranello since 2019 and is currently in the form of his life. Option 2 is to keep it open. Keep evaluating case by case and accept that every evaluation costs laps and that the laps land on whichever car is behind. That keeps the garage calm and costs him time on track at exactly the moments when time on track is decisive. There is no third option where he does neither, because doing neither is option 2 with extra steps. That is Vasseur's problem, and it is not a public relations problem. It is an operational one with a stopwatch attached. So, what do we actually know, and what are we guessing? We know the radio messages because they were broadcast. We know the pit stop happened on lap 43. We know GP Blog reported that a call came a lap earlier. We know Vasseur's 2 explanations because both were given on the record. We know Mercedes did the same thing in 1 lap on the same afternoon. We know Miami happened in May and produced the same complaint from the same driver. What we do not know, and I am not going to pretend otherwise, is what was said on the channels that were not broadcast, whether the call to Leclerc was an instruction or an option, or whether anybody at Ferrari regards this as a problem at all. Hamilton said the team will take it offline, which means the conversation that decides this has not happened where you or I can see it. Is 1 extra lap evidence of a driver ignoring his team? I do not think anybody outside that garage can honestly say so, and I am not going to say it. Is it fair to ask whether Ferrari's instructions carry the weight the team intends them to carry, when the same driver has now made the same complaint twice in 4 months? I think that is a legitimate question, and I think Sunday made it a reasonable one to raise out loud. But it is a question. It is not a verdict, and anyone selling you a verdict on this is selling you something they do not have. And here is where the cost actually lands, because it is not on either driver. Leclerc finished 5th and had a strong weekend. Hamilton finished 4th and had a competitive car for the first time since Friday. Neither of them lost anything on Sunday that a good result next weekend does not repair. The person who lost something is the man who has to answer for both of them. Vasseur now goes into the second half of a live championship with 2 drivers who both have reason to believe the car is theirs, a public record of 2 occasions where that question took too long to resolve, and a car that concedes half a second a lap in a straight line and therefore cannot afford a single wasted one. He has to pick, and every time he does not pick, the clock picks for him. The next round is Monza, Ferrari's home race, the fastest circuit on the calendar, where a straight line deficit is not a talking point, but the entire weekend. In front of 100,000 people who have very direct opinions about how this team is run. If there is a third instance of two red cars nose to tail with a tire offset, it happens there, and nobody will have to read a radio transcript to know what was decided. So, predict it for me. At Monza, does Ferrari make the call inside one lap, or does it evaluate again? Put your answer below, because I want to see who called it right when we get there. Subscribe so the Monza breakdown reaches you, hit like if you want it done exactly like this one, and until the next one.